Hello and welcome to another edition of English Vocabulary Matters, English Vocabulary News. So today we're going to be looking at an article from the world of astronomy. The title is 1% Chance of Asteroid Hitting Earth in 2032. So let's begin by reading the first paragraph, and as we come across interesting words and phrases, I'm going to give you explanations and try to help you to understand them. So, astronomers have recently discovered an asteroid with a slim chance of colliding with Earth in 2032. The space rock, named 2024 YR4, was first picked up by NASA's Atlas telescope in December 2024 and has since stirred up quite a bit of discussion. So if we look at the first word here highlighted in yellow, we could see it's an adjective, slim. Now, slim is often used to describe people who are not fat, in fact, almost thin, I would say, or at least not overweight. However, as you can see here, we're not talking about people, and we're not talking about whether they're fat or thin. The noun that is modified by the adjective is the word chance. And when we talk of a chance, what we're talking about really is probability. And if we say there's a slim chance of something happening, that means that it is very improbable. There's not really much chance of it happening at all. So in this case, the risk of the rock, the asteroid, actually hitting the Earth is considered to be pretty low. Hence, we use the phrase, there is a slim chance of that happening. Then we move on to the next verb, and this is a phrasal verb, pick up. Now, if you've been learning English for a while, I'm sure you've come across this one because it's one of the most common phrasal verbs there is. We use it a lot, both for the action of taking something with our hands, like you pick up the remote control when you want to change the channel on the TV, or you pick up your phone when somebody calls you. We can also pick up a person from a location like the airport or the hotel. So that means we go there in a vehicle, we collect them and we take them somewhere else. However, here it is used a little differently. You may not be familiar with this. As you can see from the context, what it is saying is that the asteroid has been detected by NASA's telescope. Moving on to the last word, it's another phrasal verb, to stir up. And if we look at the verb first, this is a regular verb in the past pronounced stirred that is often associated with cooking. If you've ever made anything in the kitchen, you'll know that it's quite a common action that we use a utensil like a big spoon or a spatula to move the ingredients around the saucepan as we're cooking it to make sure that everything cooks evenly. So the action of stirring is to move food around or move a liquid around. Quite often when people put sugar in their coffee, they like to stir it to make sure that the sugar is dissolved fully. However, here, like in most cases of phrasal verbs, the verb is modified with the addition of the particle, in this case, up. So if you are stirring something up, it means that you are disturbing it. Just like when you stir that soup, you are mixing those ingredients around and disturbing them so they don't settle. It's often used idiomatically to mean that it has caused a disturbance. In this case, in the scientific community, people have been alerted to this danger and they have been talking about it. So hence we say it has stirred up quite a bit of discussion. Moving on to the second paragraph. Measuring between 40 and 100 meters wide, it's currently hurtling through space at a jaw-dropping 61,000 kilometers per hour. At first, experts estimated the odds of impact at around 1.2%, but after further calculations, that number crept up to 2.3%. While that might not seem like much, it is enough to set off alarm bells in global space agencies. So the first word we have here highlighted is hurtling, and as we can see from the context, this refers to the speed of something. When it is moving really fast, in this case through space, we can say that object is hurtling. In this case, it is hurtling at a jaw-dropping 61,000 kilometers per hour. So we can figure out that the adjective jaw-dropping essentially means that something is really amazing or surprising. It makes us feel astonished, and I think it's really related to the kind of expression people have on their face when they are amazed or astonished. Quite often, their jaw drops. They adopt an expression of surprise, and their mouth is open. Moving on to the next word, here we have the phrasal verb creep up. This is an irregular verb. In the past, it's pronounced crept. When something is creeping, it is moving slowly, perhaps on purpose in order to avoid detection. If you think of a cat when it's trying to catch a mouse or a bird, the way the cat moves as it tries to get closer to its prey perfectly describes this verb creep. The cat is very slowly and silently moving nearer and nearer to the prey until it jumps on it. So that is essentially what creep means. It means to move slowly. In this case, we add the particle up, and this adverb indicates that something is increasing. Often we use the particle up in that way, as in the other phrasal verbs to fill up or go up. In this case, the probability has increased slightly to 2.3%. And as it said, that may not seem like much of a difference, but compared to a lot of other asteroids, that is actually quite a high probability. And this fact has indeed set off alarm bells in the global space community. So the final phrasal verb here in this paragraph, to set off, is often associated with alarms. If you set off an alarm, you have triggered it. You've started the alarm. Now that alarm may be a burglar alarm. So if somebody tries to break into your house, the mechanism will be set off. It will start ringing in order to alert you that somebody has broken in. It could be a fire alarm. If there is a fire in your kitchen, the smoke will set off the alarm in order to warn you to get out of the building. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Still, scientists aren't losing sleep over it just yet. Dr. Niall Smith, an expert in astronomy, insists there is no need to panic. He points out that humanity now has the means to deflect potential threats. NASA's 2022 DART mission pulled off a historic first by successfully changing an asteroid's course through a high-speed crash. The DART mission proved that given enough time, we can tinker with an asteroid's trajectory to steer it clear of Earth. Now, taken literally, it's fairly obvious that if you lose sleep, that means you are not getting enough sleep. Perhaps something wakes you up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep, so effectively you've lost hours of sleep. However, here we're using it metaphorically, so not literally, and it refers to the fact that people are not worried about something. Generally, if you have something on your mind and you're worried about it, you would literally lose sleep. It's more difficult to sleep. So if you say, I'm not losing any sleep over this, I'm sleeping well and I'm not worried about it. The second word we have here is another phrasal verb, to point out, and we often use this phrasal verb when we are highlighting something that we think is particularly important. In this case, the scientist in question has highlighted or pointed out that humanity now is not defenseless in the face of this threat. We do, in fact, have the means to potentially save ourselves from an asteroid impact. As it says in the article, there was a mission in 2022 that successfully demonstrated this possibility. In fact, we see in the third word here, to pull off a historic victory, we can understand that to pull something off is to be successful. Usually it's used when you're talking about doing something difficult or potentially quite tricky. And if you manage to pull it off, that means you have been successful in your attempt. In this case, NASA was successful in exploding or impacting an object into the asteroid, which produced a deviation in the asteroid's trajectory. So it moved off its original course. And this may be a way that we could save the Earth in the future. If we have enough time, as the article says, we need time in order to tinker with an asteroid's trajectory. So to tinker is a verb that has an interesting origin. In fact, in the Middle Ages, a tinker was actually a kind of profession. It was a person who went from village to village, from town to town, offering to repair metal items such as pots and pans and other containers. They would repair those objects, and by association, we now have the verb to tinker, which essentially means to modify, to repair, to tweak in order to make something better, or in this case, to change it in some way. And what they're trying to change is the trajectory. They are trying to steer it clear of the Earth. So if you've ever driven a car, you probably know what a steering wheel is. That is the wheel we use in order to change direction. When we turn left or we turn right, we use the steering wheel. So we can understand that to steer is to modify the direction of travel. In this case, they want to modify the trajectory of the asteroid so that it doesn't impact the Earth. Moving on to the final paragraph. Astronomers will keep an eye on 2024 YR4 to see if it poses a real threat. The asteroid will disappear for a few years after April 2025, only to reappear in June 2028, giving scientists another shot at refining their calculations. So we have two words here, two phrases. The first one is keep an eye on. And this is often used when you want somebody to watch something for you. So imagine you're in a restaurant and you need to go to the bathroom. So you ask your friend to keep an eye on your bag or your phone. So your friend will watch your possessions and make sure that nobody steals them while you're away. In this case, the astronomers are watching very carefully this asteroid in order to check its trajectory and decide if it is a real threat or not. And the last word, shot, is used in many different ways. For example, it's used in football. When a player shoots at goal, they kick the ball directly at the goal. The goal is their target. If you shoot a gun, again, you're firing a bullet at a target. In this case, we're talking about having a shot, so we're using it as a noun. When you have a shot at something, you are trying to do it. You are attempting to do it. Perhaps you'll be successful or not, but at least you're having a go. In this case, the scientists are having a go at refining their calculations, so they want to make sure that their calculations are as accurate as possible. So there we have it. We've reached the end of today's article. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to check out my other videos in this series. Until next time, I'll say goodbye.